What is up, Texas Slow Pitch Chicken Crew? We're doing our continuation of interviewing captains, trying to get us some more trips for it. So, kind of exposing us to extra areas for that are just on the outside of kind of the Texas region for us. A lot of us fish flower gardens for it, which is giving a little bit of Texas side. So, a lot of the captains I'm doing more lately are going to be just on the other side. So, Owen should be joining me just in a few minutes for it. I'll bring him on once I see him on here for it. But a lot of the captains we're doing are Louisiana captains, which are just on the no, wrong person. Where is Owen? There we go. Are going to be just east of us, which is awesome for it. So they're going to be butted up right next to us for it. And I'm bringing Owen on right now. What's up? It works.
Yeah, what's up, man?
Are you in the awesome boathouse down there?
Yeah,
Pretty sweet.
I'm upstairs.
It's absolutely beautiful out there. I hope if anybody goes down, does any of the trips with Down the Bayou, that might be the nicest fishing lodge I've ever seen for it. As far as like once you go upstairs, like it is immaculate up there.
Oh, appreciate it, man. We try.
So I appreciate you taking the time for us. You've been super highly talked about for it. So, oh no, I just kind of explain how I kind of got onto you was we were trying to get with Joey for a while or whatnot, and Greg Smith, who is a huge advocate of yours, was like, "Do Owen. You need to talk to Owen. Owen's another captain for it." And I don't think they did you justice though. Because the more I found out after talking to you doing phone calls, and a lot of people, including Joey, kind of give me more of your background, I was like, I got to interview him because I think there's a lot more to like our conversation than typical captain talks for. A lot of that, and I hope we get into it. So I guess tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. I guess I've been with Joey now for 3 years. I kind of told you this. I met him. I was a client of his, and came down and fished, and I said, "Hey, I heard you need a captain." I'd taken about a year break from the sport fishing, charter fishing game, and I was like, I want back in, and I heard you need a captain, so I set up a trip. And on the fish cleaning dock, I was like, "Hey, I'm coming to work for you." He's like, "Yeah, whatever." And then I showed up on his doorstep a month later after I finished a commitment that I had, and I was like, "I'm here." No commitment to run a boat for him, no commitment to even be a deckhand for him. And I was like, "Nope, I'm here." Worked for him for about 3 months, literally for room and board, and then that's kind of how I got my job with DTB. But before that, I kind of started sport fishing in the northern Gulf Coast when I was 16, deckhanding on a 64 Jim Smith, and then, just kind of progressed from there, right? Got to do some cool things, got to travel, do some stuff in the Bahamas, I did fish with some people in the DR, Mexico, done some stuff up on the East Coast, and, once you kind of get into the industry and start getting to know people and working on different boats, tournament fishing, traveling. So in a short, 10 years, this next upcoming season will be my 11th season from the time I started deckhanding to now. Man, just been able to kind of go all over and do a bunch of really cool things and see a lot of different places in the world, and fishing the whole time, and I guess get to claim that I'm making my living on the water for quite a while now. It's actually been the only and the longest job I've ever had. So yeah.
The reason I wanted you to kind of go into it is because everybody kept telling me Joey's old deckhand. And then when I talked to you, I'm like, that's the worst description for it. There's like so much more to it than just that. For it. Everybody's like, you gotta get one. He used to be Joey's deckhand, and that's what's glad you talked about doing the sport fishing and then kind of fishing all over the world and then running boats well before that, right? So you were a captain, you were doing your thing, and you kind of came down there and kind of cut your teeth working for Joey as far as like, I guess being almost like a gopher, like the hang around,
Yeah.
like you hang around long enough, you get a better job.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. And I had, when I was very young in the industry, the first boat I worked on, the captain retired from that. And being in the private sector, not paying people, you do not have to hold a captain's license to do that. So I was kind of the overarching, I was the person in charge and run the boat and docking the boat, moving the boat, running the trips and doing all that stuff while I did not hold a captain's license, for that private thing. So it is an important distinction to make that I wasn't a licensed captain at the time of doing that, but being in the private sector, that was not a requirement to do. We weren't charging people. So
Yeah.
yes, I was a captain by definition and running and doing all of those things, but I did not hold that license. And yeah, I mean, when you change jobs in this industry and you do those things, like I knew what it was going to take to get me to where I wanted to be. So yeah, I was willing to come down and literally, I think the first day I was here, I pressure washed the inside of the houseboat for like our inner tanks for like 3 weeks. And Joey was like, "Man, you're not leaving." And I was like, "No, like I'm not leaving until I'm running one of your boats." And then Joey was like, "Well, man, you've been here working." I'm like, "Hey, come deckhand for me on a couple Wahoo trips." And then that kind of turned into me being Joey's full-time deckhand for 3 or 4 months until he was like, "Yeah, take that boat. You're going to start running trips July 1st." And I was like, "You got it." And we haven't looked back since. So been doing the offshore, inshore, fly fishing and running trips ever since. I haven't fished with Joey in like a year and a half, and it's kind of sad. We always talk about fishing together, and maybe it's going to work out where I can sneak onto a 36-hour and I'm not booked or something and come hang out and go fish again, but that hasn't happened yet, so it's kind of been sad. Hopefully it'll happen at least once this winter.
So to try to transition into some of it, are you born and raised in Louisiana?
Yeah, I'm born and raised in North Louisiana, Ruston, Louisiana, so very, very far from the coast, unfortunately.
The reason I said is because one, it's a fishery next to Texas, right? So it's nice because it's almost like unmanned land, but it's nice when somebody's from the area because like all the little nuances versus somebody who's coming in learning it from, say, Florida or the East Coast. It's kind of nice to always have somebody who's like a little bit more familiar with it. So, and because of that, the fishery. And so when we lead into the research questions, it'll kind of benefit that. But I was just curious on that kind of stuff for it. If you could, that's your neck of the woods for it. You grew up.
Yeah, man. I grew up fishing, Point Lahash, and was over there on the east side of the river, and always liked the salt water. So being from Ruston, it wasn't an every weekend thing, but I had family down here, and so just being down here, growing up, and being in love with it. And then once I got a truck and a boat, pretty much any weekend that wasn't duck season, if I could be down here, I was down here fishing. And not long after I got a license, I started deckhanding on the Mishi down here. And so from that point on, it was every weekend, all summer, every Easter holiday break in college, taking online classes so I could stay on the island full time. Like I basically spent a better part of 200 days a year. I would say on my lowest years, 130, 150 when I was first starting to, once I got in college. If I didn't have to be in Ruston at a class at Louisiana Tech, I was going to be down here fishing. So yeah, I've spent almost a majority of my life down here now, getting closer and closer to that point every day.
And the reason we kind of want to do this, want to bring in some of you, like some of the additional captains and whatnot, including you for particular, like everybody's seen the photos of Joey's trips, right? Everybody's seen the fish kills, made PETA pissed off photos for it. But not everybody knows that like Joey books up incredibly fast. But the beauty of Down the Bayou and having these solid captains of them is there's a lot of options. So if you can't jump on with Joey, you are just as good. You're a great option for it. Your boat, which I'm going to get you to tell us a little bit about it. But I wanted people to be aware of everything that falls under his umbrella for it and the other highly qualified captain that you can jump on to go enjoy this like awesome fishery for it. So I know you're about to get into your boat.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to compete with, the 36-hour thing that's kind of made this blow up. Funny enough, you mentioned Greg. I was a deckhand for Joey on the first 36-hour slow pitch trip when me and him were looking at each other like, these dudes jigged, no bait. Like, this is either going to go really, really bad or really, really, really good. We had Ryan, Noah, Greg. I can't remember if Will was on that trip.
You have Dexter?
Colin, yeah. And we went and just, smashed them. And so then Joey kind of took over, run those 36 hours of my old boat that you're talking about. Was 36 hours were doable. I've done a few. I'd say I'd probably do, 7, 8, 9 of those, maybe not even that many, maybe 5 to 8 of those a year in my boat that I have now currently, but it's not really set up to go do that. So it's just stretch, bringing extra fuel, not as fast. And if you go back there and look, there's definitely some pictures that got the ugly duckling two-seater in it with a mighty bow full of fish on it. But yeah, so that was kind of how he kind of started, and then now this year I've been running some more and more 36 in the slow pitch stuff, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to also compete with Joey, so it's kind of a fun dynamic we now have, because every now and then I get the upper hand on him. It's been a few days I've gotten the upper hand, but I'm excited to get the new boat and see if I
Can we
can
talk
increase that.
about it a little bit? Can we talk about what you may or may not be getting?
No, there's no may or may not. It's happening. So they should be popping it out of the mold within the next week to 10 days. I haven't gotten an update
What size we going
in
with?
a little bit. 37.
So he's doing a 37 Freeman.
Yep, 37 Freeman, 300 Yamahas on the back. There's a lot of features on this boat that the normal 37 that you would see in a charter world wouldn't have. So, like Starlink's going to come standard. Like we're going to do Starlink on the boat. We're going to do custom set of tuna tubes on the back. Not as big a deal to you slow pitch guys. We're going to have a screen in the back as well. This will be a benefit to you guys when, y'all are asking me, hey, how deep? What's the bottom look like?
That
Where
is
the
a
fish.
game changer. Like if you know Greg posts, if anyone's ever fished with Greg posts up on the stern in the corner so then he can just stare at the screen. That's the only reason he fishes there, so he can immediately look over like any captain's shoulder. So that is a game changer, having an extra screen for your fishermen.
Yep, so we'll have the screen in the back that's going to be hooked up, to the sounder and stuff. So, and there's a host of other things in there that'll be nice about having that back there. But specifically for the jigging, pulling up and I'm driving, deckhands running around, and everybody's tying on their jigs. You'll just be able to look right up and be like, hey, cool, we're fishing 180 foot of water, or we're, queen fishing and we're in 580 foot of water. Just all going to pin. That's going to be nice.
The beauty of
So there's
seeing them suspended too, right? Because everybody knows the depth. But like we were asking Joey for queens suspended, being able to kind of see on there, like, yeah, it's 500 feet, but if it's like suspended 100 feet off the bottom, knowing when you go to drop, you can kind of time it a little without always having to like yell at the captain who's probably multitasking or doing several different things to try to see what they're seeing.
Yeah, I would say greater than. I'll go a little low on this percentage. I'll say greater than 75% of the queens that we catch are on the fall and suspended off the bottom. How far suspended off the bottom obviously changes, depends on the hump, depends on the current, depends on the day. But, man, most of the time, even when I'm conventional fishing for them with electric reels for queens, I'm getting my guys – I kind of stole this from the jiggers. I'm getting my guys to, jig their chicken rigs, right? Like, hey, hit the bottom, come up 20 revolutions, go back down, come up 30 revolutions, go back down 10, come back up. And we're catching the queens on conventional, jigging our bait in front of them. And that's almost always off the bottom. Very, very rarely is that weight attached to the bottom and you're getting the bite on the queen in the first, say that chicken rig's 6 foot long, 7 foot long, getting them right there. Then normally, you're up off the bottom. So it'll be nice too for that, where you can know, oh, hey, I think I passed up the fish. Let me stop that jig, come back up, come back through him, jig up through him, come back down. It'll be really nice for that. I think it'll be really, really effective, especially for Mr. Greg sitting in the back corner. He's going to fight people now for that.
It's one of my favorite things for it, because so I saw Butters was on here. So Butters is the camera guy for Johnny Jigs. What's kind of neat is they put a screen on the front of their console too. So if you're fishing the bow, they put a screen on the front of it too, which is kind of neat. So if you're fishing the front, you can look back at it, because anybody who's sitting in the back on the stern can look forward. So I always find it neat when people incorporate useful ways of bringing electronics in to help out everybody for it. It's just kind of, these boats are already super expensive, but it's kind of nice having these extra luxuries for like that.
Well, and I mean, if you wanted to get into it, and that's a very interesting idea and something I'm gonna have to look into. There may be a way to take not necessarily a screen, like a true just screen that doesn't have any other, processors or anything in it, that I could just tie into my head unit. When I get out there, just set it up on the fish box or something. And be like, hey guys, hey, here's a 37-inch flat screen TV that's now going to be your depth sounder in the front or something like that. That's highly probable and highly likely. I have to do a little looking into that, or I may just buy another screen and run have one for the slow pitch trips in particular. That hey, we're going to put this on the front, so you guys can see it, they can see it, I can see it, and that way when I'm like, hey, your jig's about to get eaten by that queen or by that grouper, they're like, what do you mean? Like, nope, you can see it. And it's fun to watch the queens chase the jig sometimes. You can see them come up and then come down and then come
That's
up.
pretty neat. I haven't seen that for it. I know when I caught my big grouper back in August, Joe VT could watch me bring it up because I was fishing like right up against the middle of the boat for it. And he's like, you're at 150 feet. You're at 100 feet.
Yeah.
And so I was like, really? He could like watch it coming up to the column for it, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, it all depends on the current. But anytime we have low current situations, that's pretty normal for us to be able, especially if you're fishing a little bit deeper and that cone gets out there and that fish is coming up to the cone. Like, we do it with swordfish all the time. When we catch a sword and you're down there, they're like, yeah, they're like, how far do we have? And I'm like, well, it's at 1,200 feet now. You've got a little ways to go. Where did we hook them? 1,600. Ooh, sorry, buddy. Like 1,200 more feet. But yeah, it's fun to watch fish react on the screen to whatever you're putting down there, especially the jigs. Getting that reaction bite, like it's pretty cool sometimes that you can see on there and be like, oh God, that fish really ate it. Like I've seen it one time where the jig went down and the fish was sitting and you saw him arc up, like I caught it just right where like he arced up, the guy got bit, and then I watched the fish come up and get caught, and I was like, I just watched the whole evolution of that fish's demise
That's pretty cool. You watched all
unfold
the
on
screen.
the TV screen. Yeah, I wish I could have recorded it. It was really cool.
So with all this, I kind of want to lead to one of the topics I was super interested in, and I want to hear about how you got involved. I've made some comments about this. You have a interesting side of all the research stuff. So I think this is going to be really interesting on the research of why it'll help when you sign up with Owen is doing the research on these fish. So far more than most captains I know as far as the research you're working with universities and globally and all in the Gulf for it. Can you tell us a little bit about some of all that?
Yeah, so there's a couple different entities and things that go on. One of them is DTB as a whole, and Joey and myself now work with LSU on, and Joey kind of started this one where all these exotics that we're catching, queens, marbles, firebacks, Spanish flags, start going down the list of just some of the random stuff that we catch. I don't know if you saw the comb grouper that me and little Noah caught a few months back. We're saving these fish, and then they're getting sent off to LSU and doing all kinds of different research there. LSU has come down with DTB. Me and Joey were on this trip together where we were actually tagging scamp groupers and yellowmouths on some of the different banks, and they have these echo locators, or basically receivers and transponders that are tracking these groupers. We've done tagging wahoo, a lot of tagging amberjacks. So there's a lot of stuff that kind of goes on with them down here, especially in the winter when we're not as busy. Like, hey, it's a calm day. Like, you guys want to go tag some groupers? But it's really cool to see what the groupers are doing and trying to figure out what's the best management policy for them is where a lot of that kind of spawns out of. And then we had, I think CCA was doing a documentary down here, and this is the one that I'm really, really heavily involved with. And there was these fine, not fine and good looking, but like just good people, especially that women who came, and that CCA was doing this documentary with them, and I got to talking to them, Amber and Emily from Blue Latitudes Foundation, and then they started hiring me out to do their different surveys and things on the oil rigs here. So they do a lot of work with oil rigs, rig to reef programs, trying to save what structures out there and, turn them into good things, for the environment. So do a lot of work with them on these different types of surveys and stuff that they do here locally. Through them, I got connected being on on an advisory board for NOAA on wind energy in the Gulf, and how is that, is that possible when it does happen? If it does happen, how is that going to change the landscape of our fishery? How is that going to affect the fish? And just an access to a ton of data there, and what they're doing, and hopefully there'll be some projects and stuff with that in the future. Even doing stuff where, me personally, I keep track when I go reef fishing, like, hey, I'm at this rig, I caught these groupers, these species on this day. Here's some basic information about, date, tide, current, location, water temperature, stuff like that I'm reporting back to them, and they're building this massive database that they're using for rigs and stuff as well, so contributing to them there. We have an international project coming up where we're going to Africa and going to be doing some oil rig stuff out there regarding reef fish, where we're going to be tagging fish at these different oil rigs, and same thing kind of for a study that's around the oil rigs and that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of different sides to that, and that's something that both me and Joey have a lot of
Passion.
yeah, a lot of passion. It's really cool for us to understand, what we're targeting, why we're targeting them, but also like what are the effects that we're having on the reef, right? So that's some of the conversations we've had about like queen snappers and different things. Like, okay, well, the limit says this, but is that sustainable? Is if we run 2 36-hour trips a week for 3 months straight, can we fish a spot out? Can we catch too many? Just use queens as an
No,
example, right? That's
that's a
a
perfect one because
high.
everybody sees it in photos, right? You see the photo, and let's face it, queens are beautiful, right? So I always say grouper are ugly, but when you look at a photo, your eye gets drawn to the really pretty redfish.
Yeah.
Nobody ever really looks at all the brownfish, which probably tastes a million times better. So it's a great item for it because you can't help but notice a shit ton of red fish on one side of the boat for it.
Yeah, and there are definitely people who will see this live chat and been on some trips with us and know that, the queens, when they give it up, they give it up. It's, they're there for the taking. And so think about that, like what is there too many? And okay, if there is, well then what is that? Because, obviously we want to go out there and provide the best trip that we possibly can and bring as many fish home as we can, but also we want to do this for, you know, 30 years. Like
Well, that's everybody. We're
I'll
supposed
speak.
to be good stewards of the land. Like if you hunt and
Yeah.
fish, like you are taking from it, but your whole job is to be a good steward so you can extend it and future generations can take benefit of it.
Yeah. This is what I tell everybody. We all have the right to enjoy our natural resources, whether it be the ocean or timber or whatever it is. But with that right comes the responsibility to take care of them. And it's a really fine line in our industry of going out and just, a wholesale slaughter of them. And well, okay, this is a lot of fish, but this is actually you know, an effectively managed resource where we
Yep.
know that we're not taking too many. And like where it comes into play where we rotate spots, we rotate reefs, like, you get on a hot bite here, you get on something there, like maybe I'm only going to catch this many groupers per rock, or I'm going to, hey, I've hit this area the last couple days, like I know that I'm going to take pressure off of it and I'm going to go over here. And that's the beautiful thing about fishing out of here is we have so many reefs and banks and things that we can go to, and I can go catch scamps and not even actually fish a bank. I can go fish ledges and catch them, or I can go fish rigs and catch them. So, we can switch up where we're putting our pressure, which generally provides a higher quality trip more consistently for our clients because I'm not going and fishing the same stuff every day. And it allows less pressure on that resource. So it feeds off of each other. It's a
Yeah.
win-win, You
I
go
was
hit new
talking
fish that aren't
with
as pressured, catch more fish, and everybody has a better trip. But then also we're not completely destroying this reef over here. We're giving it time to do its thing and settle back down and.
so if you're coming from Texas Port Fourchon is a long ways, but the beauty of it though is all the head boats from Texas can't go as far as what you guys are for it. So a lot of the head boats are probably going as far as maybe Geyer. So there's a lot of untapped, beautiful water in y'all's neck of the woods, which allows for better management of it. Where I feel like Texas waters have probably been fished out in a lot of spots. But talking with Tyler the other day, he says there's a crazy amount of miles of area that everybody can hit, and you can easily rotate it to help manage it. So I think it allows for people to have these trips of a lifetime without destroying an entire ecosystem for it. Because one, it's a long ways down there to you guys. Like once you kind of hit Baton Rouge and everything, and then or like just kind of get towards New Orleans, you turn south, you still got 4 hours to go for it. So it's a good little cruise down there, which is a beauty because not everybody else is able to go down there too. Like when we were down there, I was talking to Joe. He goes, "I might not see another boat for a week." He goes, "I might not ever see a boat for a while for it," which is unheard of in a lot of Texas waters. Like you're always looking out and seeing a boat in the distance somewhere.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, like our closer reefs and stuff that we fish on, like more of a day trip type setting, we will see other boats there, and it also depends on the type of trip that you're doing, right? So, like, if we're going grouper fishing, there's a whole host of places that we're going to go where, yeah, we'll may see one other boat a day on a day trip. 24-hour, 36-hour likelihood of where we're going, if you see another boat, it's probably another boat from DTB. Like, that's just kind of, and that's the beauty of where we got, because Geyer is kind of the outer reaches of our limit going west.
Yep.
It's kind of the outer reaches of their limit coming east, and there's just a lot of reefs that are just just east of Geyer and moving back towards us. That is in the perfect spot where, it's kind of it's out of reach for Venice to go to, and really Lake Charles, Cocodrie, and us and Port Fourchon are kind of the three, but we don't, in any three of those places, we don't have the charter fleet
Yep.
that exists in Venice, or the charter fleet that exists in Port Aransas, or Galveston. Like, so it's kind of a beauty of like, there's not really a lot of boats that are fishing that in general. So awesome. Like, go out there and go be by yourself. I love it.
I noticed that when you were driving down there for it, like a lot of Texas, like you'll see a lot of like private boats too, right? So I factor those and not just commercial, because Port Fourchon is super industrial down there for it. A lot of the area that's on the water is all big business for it, like a lot of like industrial parks for it. So I don't see a lot of private boats in that area that can go out that far. Where like if you drive through Freeport or Galveston and you go to the yacht basin, there's 100 boats, 200 boats that could easily go and fish these spots. Where I didn't see a lot of, maybe it's ignorant for me looking, but I didn't see a lot of boats for like private use that were all stacked up in there either.
Yeah, I mean, Point Fourchon, kind of Marina and Morans is going to be like the two places you have most of your private boats. But I mean, still in comparison to, even in comparison to Grand Isle or Venice, Biloxi, getting over towards you guys in the Houston, Galveston, Gulfport, Port Aransas, Port O'Connor, like all that. Yeah, it's minuscule. It's a minuscule amount of private boats out here. Pretty much everything you see here is, oil crew boats. Crew boats.
That's
There's
what I
more
saw
crew boats than there are private boats.
Yeah, because you use those as kind of like a reference, right? Like houses all look alike after a while, but crew boats and all that other stuff kind of makes the references easy when you're coming down there, especially late at night. Like I usually get down there at like midnight, so that stuff is kind of easy to, it's like landmarks for me to know where to turn and stuff like that, versus like just rows and rows of like beach houses or houses on
Yeah,
stilts.
yeah, it's easy to find us, man. Just keep driving straight. Just don't go over the bridge that's not there, because that would be bad.
Yeah.
When you get to the bridge, take a left, and
I
you'll
had to
see
like
that
put a
there's
pin. I was like, it's gonna look a sketchy road, but still turn there for it. Like you're gonna go a little bit, and you can't miss it for it. You have to turn there. So kind of a cool transition for it. So I've been trying to work with a lot of the captains for it, and get a lot of us guys trips. Like everybody sees us booking trips, but one of the pain in the ass things is, one, nobody wants to be in charge of the entire trip, so they don't want to find 5 other people or 4 other people. 2, nobody wants to really shell out these big deposits for it. So I worked with Owen here, and Down the Bayou kind of agreed, and I'm gonna go ahead and announce it if you don't mind. that they agreed to do 3 open boats for us. So they're going to do the 3 prime months too for it, like you've seen. It's going to be June, July, and August, right? The 3
Yep.
best months of the year for it. So when you see these like fish haul photos, those are summer months when the current is almost non-existent out there. I was on a trip and we sat still for 10 minutes and we drifted 30 feet. So we had to use the boat to kind of move for it. Where the beauty of that is you're able to get by with a lot smaller jigs out there, which means a lot more action. You can feel it a lot more for it, and it doesn't beat the hell out of you. So I was going to let you just kind of talk about your 36 hours. So these are going to be 36-hour overnight open boat trips for it. So if you want to talk a little bit about how your trips work, and then we'll talk about a little bit of the details on them and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, and I'm really excited to do this. I think it'll be a lot of fun, especially because I love the slow pitch jig trips. They're my favorite. And 36 hours are just a lot of fun. So this is a good way to get a few more of those on the calendar every year. And I'm totally in for it. But yeah, so the standard 36-hour trip, the way we kind of set that up is we'll leave about 7 a.m. Let's just say on a Monday morning. We're going to leave Monday morning at 7 a.m. Depending on where we're going and depending on the sea conditions, you're talking about to get where we want to go, say a 3-hour run. Just kind of depends. Sometimes a little closer, maybe sometimes a little further. Just depends on how fast we can run, all that. Good news is we don't have to stop for bait, so it
Oh,
saves
the
us some
beauty of
time.
it is quad 300s when you're doing like 40. So if you want to move spots or get where you're going, you're getting there fast for it. Like you're
Yeah,
doing 40 to 50 everywhere you're going.
yeah, 3 hours is going to get us far enough off the coast to go get into some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
So normally I kind of like to start with the shallow stuff on the first day, but it also depends if there's a really good hot queen bite in the afternoon, which is very possible. We may start with the deep stuff, but we'll kind of do one or the other that first afternoon, right? So we may do our shallow waters and our exotics that afternoon. So that's going to be, trying to get our grouper limit done, get our red snapper limit done. Obviously, hopefully pick up a marble or a fireback or dog snapper, whatever cool stuff we're able to come across while
He
we're
says that
doing.
nonchalantly, but tell him a little bit of that story real quick.
Oh,
So,
the double up on the marbles.
no, not just that one. Like when you called Joey about the size.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That I
he
messed that
nonchalantly
up.
talked about exotics for, but everybody wants exotics. And so, reason I got Owen to is Owen's catching them just like anybody else. And Owen's got a crazy story about the exotics too. So I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'm going to let him tell it. But I wanted him to tell this story so y'all just know that he puts exotics on the deck pretty impressively.
Yeah, this one's gonna haunt me for a while, but it's okay. I was on a 36 hour and catch two really, 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 really big marbles. Like it's like, man, those are good marbles. Cool. Like caught one, went and caught a few scamps, just swung back by that rock. Send it down one more time. Boom, another one. Okay, cool. One of my guys on the boat asked me, he goes, man, like, what's the world record for this? I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. Like, I don't even really know. Like, let me ask. So, and I asked Joey through the thing, like, hey man, like, you mind looking up the world record marble real quick? And Joey just answers back to me real quick. He's like, hey man, like, if you're not in like the high 30s, like, don't even worry about it. All right, cool. So, and I kind of looked at them and I was like, yeah, like, they're probably like 33, 35. They're really big marbles, but I was like, I think we're going to be, 4 or 5 pounds off the world record. So, all right, cool, yeah, man, no problem. So we get in and I weighed them real quick, and I think one was like 34 or something, and one was like 35 something. And I'm like, yeah, man, like, they got to be in the high 30s, Joey said, to like even contend, like not worth it. Dice them things up. And I told Joey, he looked at me and he was like, you had the world record marble and what would have been number 2 as well. And I was like, oh, thanks. That really makes me feel
I
good
didn't
about my
mean to like turn the knife. Only reason I say that is everybody I've talked to, that whole group that just came from Florida with me for that trip with Joey, everybody wants exotics. And so I just want to keep preaching that like all the captains that I'm doing, like you, Joey, Tyler, are putting people on these exotics. And your researching also definitely helps on this stuff too. So I just want everybody to know that Owen is catching crazy exotics. You might not see his photos as much as like some of the other ones because people are posting them, but Owen has caught some impressive, very impressive exotics down there.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's pretty safe to say that between every 36 hour, whether it's me, Joey, Joe, Tyler, like the guys that are going out there and doing this, like you have a very, 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 very good shot of snagging, you know, if we come back without one exotic per trip, that would be a rarity. Most of the times it kind of seems like it's in that 2 to 4 range. Like, sometimes you go out there and get 2 firebacks, sometimes you get 2 marbles, sometimes you pick up a marble, 2 firebacks, and a black, or, out here for us, kind of like a mutton snapper here is pretty rare. Lots of blackfin snappers, dog snappers. You don't ever the comb grouper, that's the craziest one I've ever seen. The little comb groupers that are
I haven't
supposed to
seen
be
those
like,
before. I think it's kind of like what Joe was talking about. He was talking about some other ones like tiger grouper. Or is it the
yeah,
tiger?
tiger
I didn't
grouper,
even know if
coney.
it existed.
Yeah, the coney groupers are really cool. Yeah, these little comb groupers, I don't know much about them. They're only supposed to be like, small fish, right? Like think like rock hind size. And like I said, I know very, 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 very little because I've only ever seen one in my life. And I haven't done a ton of research on them yet, so I could be wrong in this. But from what I understand, they're supposed to be small. And me and little Noah were on a scamp spot, and we caught this grouper. Like, is it a Warsaw? Is it a Kitty Mitchell? Is it a Warsaw mixed with a Kitty Mitchell? Is it a scamp mixed with a gag mixed with a
Oh, I
Kitty? I don't
saw
know.
that photo. I
And
think
we
I
were
saw
like,
that photo. It's like a
what?
gag with like a scamp tail.
So we got way down the list of all this, and the general conclusion is I'm waiting on LSU has it. They're going to ID it for me, but the general consensus is it's a comb grouper, and if it's a comb grouper, it would be another world record, from my understanding. That's no, take me that's what I vaguely know about this. I'm waiting to get back the information on what it is first. It's possible it's a hybrid of some sorts. It's possible it's the comb grouper. I don't know what it is. It was really cool. I'll
I'm
probably
really
never
glad you
see another
said
one in my
2 to 4 exotics because I would hate you to say 5 exotics and then my luck, I'd be the one guy who doesn't catch one. So the other 5 guys on a trip gets one. And then they have a photo like, David, can you take the photo for us? And I'm like, no, you guys can screw out those. I'm not taking y'all's photo.
Yeah, man, and like you never know. That's the cool thing out here is we have a very healthy population of exotics. Where it is kind of fun. Like you watch that rod bend over and you're like, that's a big grouper. Which one is it? Is it going to be a red one? Is it going to be a brown one? And then sometimes you're like, oh shit, didn't expect it to be that one, but
But
it's
the
cool.
beauty of it, even if it's not an exotic, like when I fished with Joe BT, I hooked into a giant, I don't say giant, a really big grouper. And he was like talking to me about Kitty Mitchell's. And he's like, it might be a kitty, it might be a kitty. And then it came up and it was like a 25-pound yellow edge. So even the non-exotics are still giants out there for you. You'll have a lot of big like yellow edges and then big scamps and whatnot, which is beautiful because it's a lot of untapped land. So even if you're not catching exotics, there's still big, more common grouper out there.
Yeah, man, we get the yellow edges, we get the snowies, we get the scamps, yellow mouse, firebacks, blacks, conies, tigers, mystic groupers, strawberry rock hinds, one called like a calico rock hind. Like, I mean, every year, like I've caught a fish this year that I had no idea what it was while I was mangrove fishing, and I was like, it looks like it belongs in an aquarium, like, and I had to go back and be like, what the hell is this thing?
So
Like,
what do
so we
you
haven't
think you
really had.
specialize in?
Hmm?
What do you think you specialize in? Like you talk about all these crazy exotics and all that stuff. Like if you were to put what your bread and butter is, and like what you like, if you were to like, I know I can do this. Like, what is your bread and butter?
Ooh, ooh, that's so hard because I like doing it
Or
all.
what are you good at? Not what you like doing. Like I like catching stuff that I'm not good at either. But like Joey, for example, I think he's been kind of labeled like the queens. Like when you see Joey's photo, it's like a crazy amount of queens. Like what is something that you can tip your hat to and you said, I know I can do?
Yeah, so I definitely wouldn't say I'm the best at this. That's a fact. But our fishery and our operation and what we do definitely lends all of us to being good at the bottom fishing. I mean, that is a large percentage of our trips that we run. That's kind of our bread and butter thing, like going to get the groupers, going to get the queens, going to get the tile fish. And we do, don't get me wrong, we do plenty of our fair share of tuna fishing and wahoo fishing and sword fishing and rip fishing for mahis and stuff. And, we do it all. It's one of the things about our fishery is like every day it changes for me. Like I have a group comes in, I'm going mahi fishing, then I'm going sword fishing, then I'm going on an overnight tuna trip, then I'm on a 36-hour deep drop trip, and then I'm on a slow pitch trip, and then I'm to 5 days of, double up red snapper, half days. Like the tackle on my boat changes every day at a blistering pace. I wish I could like section it off. Like I'm going to do a week of these trips and a week of these trips and a week of these trips. We have to be good at everything. I think that's a lot too with the Louisiana, even Gulf Coast fishermen in general. We have a lot of options, and so we have to be good at a lot. But out of here specifically, yeah, the bottom fishing, whether it's with bait, jigs, live bait fishing, is going after the groupers and the reef fish is definitely like our bread and butter, and that's something that like every day I feel very, very confident when I'm getting in a boat to go do that. Like, absolutely. Like, yeah, like may not catch a limit in this day trip, but I promise you, you're gonna have a mess of them. I feel very confident in doing that. So
So I know we're doing the 36-hour open boats, but if somebody wants to, let's just say, book private, you do day trips as well, correct? You do day trips?
yeah, so we offer a 10-hour, which is going to be like your mangrove red snapper, cobia, in a little bit closer kind of day, or maybe like a full day of sword fishing if you wanted to do that. Then we do a 14-hour, which is going to be like your daytime tuna trips. It's going to be your daytime or like day trip, like grouper fishing, queen fishing, kind of like stuff a little bit further. Gives us a little more range, kind of hit that 100-mile mark and go get into some cooler stuff. That's going to be that's like our most popular trip, right? Because we can fit in red snappers, mangroves, and groupers. We can fit in a multitude of different species and different techniques of fishing into a single day. Then a 24-hour trip, which is going to be most of our tuna wahoo trips. Like this time of the year, if the weather's calm, like I'll go to the canyon, go get my tuna, and then make it over to a particular bank or reef or ledge or something that I want to go wahoo fish at in the morning. But that's going to be mostly your pelagic kind of overnighters, and then the 36-hour. That's going to be your slow pitch or deep drop trips. And we could do a 36-hour pelagic trip as well. Don't normally need that much time, but if we want to go do it and go, chase a marlin or something too, or throw in a little bottom fishing on the way back with that, there's definitely some plans that we could put out there that we could accomplish a little bit of everything in that. But yes, those are kind of the basic trips or the types of trips that we offer from an offshore, perspective.
And so Owen's a little bit different than Joey. For Owen offers another type of trip that's a little more specialized for it. We have some people in the group that do enjoy it. You want to tell us about your fly fishing?
Yeah, man. So the fly fishing is a new venture for us, but we just recently purchased a 17-foot Maverick, and we've had it for a little bit now. And got introduced into doing this about 3 years ago, and in as much off time as I have and can play around with. Been able the last couple of years to go fly fishing, and some good buddies of mine up the road kind of introduced me into it. So yeah, we've started doing the fly fishing trips. It's been really, really fun. Been catching a lot of fish, and we also do conventional sight fishing with that. So like if fly fishing is not your jam, but you want to go throw sight casting jigs. My favorite ones out of Texas with you guys, Bugs sight casting jigs, inshore Bugs jigs. I think on his Buggs. He makes a really, really, really nice kind of fur sight casting jig that I like and use a lot. But yeah, we do the conventional side, light tackle, bull red fishing. If you want to go catch wintertime slots or summertime slots up in the marsh and, bring home some redfish with you. Like if you're going to do a 36-hour and you want to stay an extra day and have a recoup day, but go spend a little bit of time on the water, doing a 6-hour sight fishing trip, whether it's conventional or fly, is a great way to cap it off or start your trip way more laid back, not near as hard on the body, hanging out a little bit slower pace. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and it's been really fun right now. It's just another thing to learn and another thing for me to do when I'm down here right now in the winter, and worked on my boat all day today, and tomorrow I'm gonna go fly fish for fun because why not?
So I got a question for you, kind of circling back to some of this for like I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight for it. But so with the research background and doing these SPJ trips, what are some of the takeaways of some of the things you've like picked up or noticed or kind of observed that are kind of things of note that have like either stood out or things you think it might be important for people to know that they're not really seeing or whatnot? You're fishing every day. You have the analytical background doing some of the research stuff, and then you're seeing the jigs at work. What are some of the things you've taken away from jigs as far as maybe what's working, what's not working for different fish or anything for it?
Ooh, that we know less and less than we think. I think that's more research to do. That's what I think. But specifically with jigs, I think it's a really interesting concept that we're causing a fish to do something that it probably doesn't necessarily want to do with the reaction bite, and it works, and it's really, really, really effective. One thing that I've noticed is going to have to be with the queens. And the queens is definitely that bite on the fall. Like, it's wild. Like, the bite on the fall, like I wouldn't say not to jig, but there are definitely times in which you hit the bottom, reel it up 150 feet and drop it again and just let it free fall. And when it stops, you got the fish, got him, roll on.
Not even just that.
Uh,
Like so most of those jiggers, we keep our thumb on the spool, right? Because you're supposed to slow it down for it. I've learned with queens, just let it drop for it. It'll flutter naturally, and then once it stops, they hit it so much easier for it. That's one of the things I've learned too for it.
yeah, and I think sometimes, depending how fired they're up, it's almost a whole nother technique inside of itself, right? Like the art of dropping the jig, just like you talked
Yeah.
about with the thumb. So, you know, like I've even thought about, it's kind of like dropping your rod tip, right? So like when you're fishing for grouper on the bottom, like I think how fast you drop your rod tip, you jig, you come up and follow it back down. Well, do you follow it down a little faster? Do you follow it down a little bit slower? Do you follow it down and stop for a second and then follow down? Like that's something to play with, but definitely with the queens, same thing. Like sometimes you maybe get it right in that zone and you really slow it down with your thumb and let it sit there in front of their face and just kind of and then they have to hit it. Or sometimes you want it to rip through it at full speed. I don't know if there's a particular answer to that where I'd say, hey, this works better than that yet. It's definitely something like I keep track of, and sometimes I'll be like, hey, man, you let yours go free fall through. Hey, man, you put your thumb on that one a second and just see, right? And
Yeah.
I think every day they're different too. How fired up they are, what kind of bait they're eating. Like when the queens are eating the little beeliners out there when the beeliners are spawning, you want it fast. Little
So
beeliners
what
are
time of
darting around.
year do you think that is? That's a great point for it. So when are they feeding on those? Because it's great for people to know colors too, right? So during that time, you might switch over something maybe more red or something that kind of mimics it or a little smaller for it. So when is that time of year?
So that's well. Let's see. Hold on, I gotta think. When was that this year? That was August. It was August. So that one of the pictures I sent you with all the guys on the front of the boat, all holding queens.
Yeah.
That was a day trip, and that was a day trip in the fin cat, and we caught like 22 or 24 queens on a day trip that day with our snappers, groupers, and other stuff that we were doing. So we didn't spend a long time doing it, and I found those queens. I pulled up after I think we just got done catching some groupers, and they wanted a few beeliners. I was like, got you. Whipped over here, kind of dropped on a deeper beeliner spot that I have, and the beeliners that we're catching were coming up like small, like smaller than normal. And I was like, that's interesting. And one of those rods just double start doing the thing. I was like, man, That's acting like a queen snapper. For the next week, I went out to that area and fished different rocks, and it was catching vermilions this big. Sometimes like saw them spitting up some that were 3 inches long, and that was middle to end of August. I have to go back and look and see what moon that was around, because I'm sure that has something to do with the beeliner spawn. But yeah, that August time frame tends to be really, really good for the queens just in general, and I'm sure it has something to do with that. But you start catching small beeliners and you're in the right depth of water, there's probably some queen snappers around eating them. And that,
You think of
red, yellow, and pink colors, perfect.
so like grouper will sometimes hit a vermilion that's hit a jig. Do you think queens will hit a vermilion on a hook? Like you hook a
Absolutely.
vermilion and it's kind of floating around, a queen will hit it kind of like a grouper will?
I've seen multiple times, especially during that like 10 days this August, where rod tip would go down, classic beeliner bite.
Yeah.
Guy comes tight on the electric reel, rod bends over a little bit and it's doing the reeling, and it goes, like, yeah, man, it's a beeliner. And it gets 75, 100 feet off the bottom and it goes, and you're like, why did that fish just get bigger? It got eaten. Now, whether they ate the beeliner on the hook or they ate another squid that was following the beeliner and the beeliner just attracted the queen, I don't know. But I would also imagine they're probably eating the beeliner, because a few times they came up and all the other hooks had bait, and then there's now just a queen. And they're almost always hooked. When they do that, they're hooked like in the top of the mouth, and it's got like a really good size like hole. Like you lose a lot of those fish on the electric reels when they do that. But the ones we caught, like it almost like when it ate, it was not how a circle hook is supposed to go. Not in the corner of the mouth,
Yeah.
not easily coming tight on it. Like he hit it and it just snagged his jaw, and that one just didn't pop off, and he came all the way up. So yeah, they definitely do that. They definitely do that.
That's kind of interesting. I never would have thought that, right? Everybody's like, a lot of people with jigs are the only ones usually catching queens for a while. I haven't seen a ton caught on bait, but I didn't realize queens were that aggressive that they'll attack beeliners already hooked on. Because we catch AJs, you'll catch grouper all the time that are like on jigs or already hooked flopping around for it. So it's a lot of great, useful information for a lot of guys on here.
Yeah, and like I said, it was about a 10-day window in which that's what I did for 10 days. Because I was going out there and catching 10, 12, kind of pretty consistently 10, 12 with a couple of days that were in the upper teens and low 20s on queens on a day trip, which is an incredible day. Like you just don't really see that. That's like a normal bait overnighter or 36 hours worth of queens. And, the one day that I took guys out there with jigs, we did it. We did it to them. They were there for the doing. That was the day we ended up with like 25 or 26 of them.
It's a good day for it. You guys get some pretty good sized queens out there.
Yeah, man, it was a ton of fun, and that was at a closer place to us, so it was doable in a day trip. And watching those rods, you're like, yeah, no, I know that's a beeliner, because it was instant beeliner bite every time. And then that rod would load up. There's only so many things that it can be, and they weren't sharks because we weren't getting cut off. They may have been dolphins, but I wasn't marking dolphins or seeing dolphins, and we were deep enough that there were not really a bunch of amberjacks around. So it only kind of leads me to believe that it was a queen snapper, especially since we were catching some of them from doing that.
Yeah.
So, but you never know. Could be some other cool fish down there that we haven't caught yet doing it.
That
It'd be cool.
is the beauty of you guys having that much untapped land, is you just never know what you're going to catch. Because I've talked to Tyler, and Tyler's like, we got big blacks out here. He goes, they're massive. He goes, I want to catch one. I haven't seen them. And then when on Greg's trip, he brought out some that had giant hooks into it, or giant bites. It looked like it was a cabera attacked his vermilion on the way up for it. So it's like, any cool things you're wanting to catch, jump on with these guys, because you have an opportunity to catch something you never thought you might be able to catch out there.
That's the state record black right there.
Yeah.
108 pounds, and then The next day, they hooked one that got bit in half by a shark, and it weighed just as much as that one. I know I've hooked a couple. I've either hooked a couple blacks or big cuberas that have taken me to the cleaner. You know, and we do fish for some big stuff out there, right? Like we do fish for the cuberas and the big dog snappers and the blacks and low percentage catch rate, right? Like you're gonna have to put some time into accomplishing that, but when it happens, it's really cool, really cool.
So if you guys are adding to it, so if you guys are in the bait camp, when you go up the stairs, I recommend everybody, as soon as you go up, turn left immediately. And there's a really cool article that has, I think it's Joey and somebody else, has two massive caberas. That's one of the coolest photos, right? When you come up the stairs, immediately turn left and check it out for it. He's in the newspaper of the two giant caberas they caught.
Yeah, the it wasn't 124. They had one that was over 100. And they caught Joey caught a 92 pounder and like a 40, 50 pounder. It was either high 80s, low 90s, and then another two this year. And right around that same time, I got by what I'm pretty sure was a cubera. So they're around. They're definitely around, and they're hard as hell to catch. But when you do, they're cool, really cool. So that's my neck. That's one I want to beat right there. I want a 120 of the blacks. Bad.
There's plenty of space for it. You might be able to get it downstairs next to that giant fireback. So the cool thing is, when you guys go into the fish camp, the Hall of Fame photos is quite impressive. That's one of my goals, is to get on that wall. At some point, I would love to have a photo on it. I bet you're in quite a few of those. You got to be in some of those. Like, it's just a ton of exotics or impressive fish. So if you need to know, like, hey, are these common here? They do catch, like I said, 2 to 5, depending on it. But there's quite a few down there. The wall. And I told Joey that he needs to go up the stairs then, so it kind of follows you when you go upstairs, to put him on that side of it, so it kind of follows you going up. Because he said he has a lot of photos he hasn't even posted.
Yeah, so every year we add to it, and we kind of compile, and like, I mean, I think we're gonna try and add like another. You know, when we add to it, it's not like, oh, we're adding 5 pictures. It's like, yeah, we're gonna add 100 or whatever. We're gonna run out of room very quickly, or we're just gonna have a whole room with just start putting them on the ceiling. I don't know. We'll find somewhere to put them.
So I know we're kind of getting close to that hour mark, and I don't want to keep taking all your night. So just let everybody know, though, if you book with Owen, you do have the option, which I highly recommend, is signing up for the housing. You see where Owen is chilling right now for. It's one of the nicest fish camps I've seen. They've got 8 rooms that hold 24 people total.
Yep.
It's $300 per room, so it's 3 beds. So you have to book a whole room, which is nice, because if you have 6 people, 2 rooms, you're done. And they do, depending on the time of year, have catering you can sign up for if you get with them. Depending on the year, if they chefs there or whatnot. So they got a lot of.
Our new chef now is we're wide open.
Okay.
So 24/7. We can make that happen, and yeah, everybody's got their own bathroom. We have a wonderful lady who takes care of all the housekeeping for us. She does an incredible job, keeps everything immaculate. You do not have to worry about leaving stuff for cash to pay for your trip in your room. One of the best compliments we got this year was a gentleman was fishing with us and left a decent amount of cash out in his room, and our housekeeper was in there to that, and he said, I left it there, and like I was worried, and not a single thing was touched or moved around it. Like 10 out of 10. Everybody that we want to work here, we want everybody to feel, safe and make sure that their stuff is protected, but also have a, clean room, clean bathroom, clean sheets. And so, yeah, man, we try to do the best we can. It's not much, but it's honest.
It's more than just such. So Owen, I'm going to let you finish it off. So you kind of end it the way you want. Any way you want to, if you want to tell us or anything I missed talking about. I do have a topic, but I might get with you one off later on. I'm curious about what you think about the big grouper and their lifespan. If you think, because some of these big grouper that are 20 to 30 pounds, they could be 50-year-old fish. So I was curious about what you're researching. Maybe we can talk about that another time for it. But I'm going to let you end it, and you kind of talk about anything you want for a few minutes.
Oh, man, this is I will say this, and this is, I guess, a bit of a sales pitch, if you will. But the reason I came to work for Joey is because he's an honest and fair dude, and he loves what he does, and this is the only thing he wants to do with his life is fish, right? And that's how I am, and that's how Joe is, who comes down here and fishes. And the new guy that we're bringing on this year, Hayden, who's going to be running my old boat. You know, we do this not because we love it for a couple of years, right? Like, I'm not planning on being at DTB for 5 years and checking my checkbox of like, oh yeah, I was a captain and went and caught some cool fish and son. No, I'm trying to retire from here, and so I think that just speaks to how everybody who works here as a captain for us is like, that's their goal, and that's what we look for. Is we want people that want to make a career out of this and build lifelong clientele and friends and people who, like, you know, I want to see somebody's kid catch their first grouper on my boat and then come for their college graduation trip. Like, I think that'd be super cool to like watch an entire kid grow up, seeing them once or twice a year for 18 years and be like, I got to watch this kid grow up, you know, from fishing. And so like, that's why I chose to come to work and pursue a job down here with Joey. And in the last couple of years, man, like that's what we all try to bring to the table is like, not we're just here doing this for a little bit of time. We want to be lifers at this, which sounds crazy sometimes when you say it, but yeah, like it's what we want to do. And so we want to fish with people not once, right? Like if that's what we get to do, that's awesome. We're going to make the best out of it. But my goal every day when new people get on my boat is like, hey, like I hope these are going to be people and we have the kind of trip that these people want to fish with me every year. And you think it would get easier when people start fishing with you multiple times. It doesn't. It gets harder because we just keep setting the bar higher. You're like, I'm going to need a bigger boat. Like, I don't know how I can make this any better than last trip, but we're going to try. So, yeah, and it's just a fun place, man. We have a good time. Food's good. Housing's good. Fishing's good. And we try to have fun on all the trips and, you know, have realistic expectations and have the conversations with people and be honest and fair and, you know, do everything we can to put together as many trips of a lifetime as we can in our lifetime. So, but yeah, man, I really appreciate this, and this was a ton of fun. And on the grouper research thing, if y'all want to get into the science stuff one time, we can talk about that, and I could probably coerce some people that I know into to hopping on that know way more about the actual science that
It'd be
goes
fun
on behind all
to
of it.
do like once every so often. Like I want to do like follow-ups with everybody. It's like, especially the more y'all are doing trips, the more you're gonna learn. So it's not like you can't share more information for it. So touching back what you said, only reason I agreed to do these and I reached out is because of what you said about how good the people are and whatnot. Joey's probably him and Matt Smith are the two best captains, like as far as people I've been around. And I realized that he's gonna have the same people like him around him. Nobody's gonna be a good person than have assholes around him, right? Usually you attract good people to you for it. So that's why I agreed to do these, is because I take an hour tonight and I could have done anything else for it, but I wanted to put a highlight on you guys for like I'm gonna do Matt Smith or captains I enjoy being around. Not just because of what you're fishing. I tell everybody these trips are rather expensive, so it's two things, right? You want a good trip to catch stuff, and you gotta like who you're with, because if I'm giving you that much money, if it's a piss poor relationship between me and you, it is a miserable 36 hours on a boat. You are complete
Yeah.
in your head. You're like, why did I pay this much money to be on this boat with this person?
Yeah, well, and I mean, look, we're all people, and it's Mother Nature too, right? So like, we are not. What's the word I'm looking for? Not capable. Wow, can't remember the word. We can
Yeah.
have bad days, right? Like it is very possible we go out there and the fish choose not to cooperate, and we're like, I don't know, right? So, and me and you talked about this. Like, it's my goal to have a clean and professional boat, a clean and professional crew, have a really good time with my clients, and make sure every variable from my tackle to the mechanics on my boat to my deckhand that like, hey, like we want this to be a good experience from the time you step foot on the property till the time that you leave. And like, yes, I want you to talk about how good the fishing was, and like, yeah, sure, for me, you go talk about, oh yeah, Owen was a badass, yay, cool. But like, I want you to go back and I want you to be like, the houseboat was amazing, the food was amazing, Taylor and Joey who were hanging out, they were amazing. The fishing was amazing. The kid who was deckhanding for us, he was amazing. The fishing, and then you get to like, and on top of just the great ass time we had, we killed the shit out of the fish. And you're like, yeah, like
No, I agree.
that's our goal, right? And so we can't control the fishing always, but we're going to control as many variables as we can and make sure that they're up to our standard, so that when the fishing or the weather or this hiccup happens, everything else is,
I agree.
everything else is above standard. So
So I'm just going to wrap it up with one more thing for it. So Owen's going to do, like I said, 3 trips for us. We're going to have a June, July, and August. I'm going to put posts out having the details of how we're going to do it, where how to put your deposit down, and then kind of details of when the rest of the payments or whatnot going to be done for it. I'll have the dates on there. And then if anybody has any questions, can they ping you on Facebook or anything like that? Or how would you prefer if they have any questions or whatnot?
yeah, so Facebook and Instagram have my phone number and my email on them. That's the best two ways. I do my best to look at my DMs and the Facebook Messenger and that stuff.
You can put me putting your number in the post. As I always
Absolutely.
ask beforehand. I'll put the
Yeah,
there we
put my
go.
number, put my email. Text works best, because if I'm fishing or doing this, that, and the other, and I don't catch your phone call, I'll check my voicemails. But if I see a text, I'll pin it up at the top of my conversations, and I can, then I look at it. I see it. I need to call this person. I need to respond to this text. That definitely works the best for me. But yeah, both of those are also public on my Facebook and my Instagram. So please post it. I already make it available to the internet. I'm surprised nobody's decided to start prank calling me. Joe VT, if you're watching this and you start prank calling me, I'm going to be really mad.
I could totally see him doing that for some reason. I
Oh
think he's
yeah,
in
he's
the
probably
Carolinas right
giggling in
now.
his seat right now, like I'm gonna call Owen. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, whatever. That definitely works for me. And like I said, they're also public on my profiles. And feel free, call me, ask me any questions. We'll get it set up and go do the best we can do.
Yes, sir. We appreciate your time tonight.
Yeah, man. And thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Owen.
All
Bye.
right, bye.